20 years, 107 pole positions, 287 podiums, 124 wins, 6 constructors titles, and 8 drivers championships. So he played Ding Dong the Witch is Dead? Kia ora, I'm Kimmy. I talk about Formula 1 in the world's second worst accent, and the problem with living on this side of the world is all these huge paddock-rattling stories always break when I'm either about to go to sleep or while I'm indulging in a 7.5-hour micro-death. But on the plus side, it does give the media cycle more time to reveal bits and pieces that might slot into the puzzle and what the next steps for Christian Horner might be, which is exactly what happened here. Thanks, weird time zone. Now, full disclosure, on the official binary Kimmy X scale of 1 and 0, Christian Horner does, in fact, register a 1. However, to ignore the success this guy's led Red Bull to over the past 20 years would be doing him a disservice. He took a team that, apart from a one-off high in 1999 with a newly developed Ford engine which was bolted into the back of the car and Rubens Barrichello and Johnny Herbert managing to drive them up to 4th in the championship, was consistently putting in results that ended with them 7th or lower in both their Stewart and Jaguar iterations. And within a few years, Horner turned them into one of the prestige teams on the grid. Now, there's so many factors that go into this, what is effectively a firing, but is actually a standing down from duties with a gardening leave period. First, there's the domino effect of what went on last year and is still going on now, despite it being pretty much all quiet on the inappropriate conduct front thanks to a gag order in place on the British media. Whether or not the allegations made against Horner back in February 2024 were the catalyst that prompted the mass exodus of key personnel like Adrian Newey and Jonathan Wheatley is probably not going to be fully understood until one of them writes a memoir. But I think it's safe to assume that the instability in the team and the potential conflict with personal ethics that working under Horner could have brought up after all of that went down is probably a bit of a factor. And it is widely reported that it was the main reason Adrian Newey handed in his notice. And then what happened from there was what can only be described as a bit of a team meltdown. The car was undrivable for anyone other than Max, and even for him at points. The internal power struggle drama simmered away and kept rearing its ugly head every few months. Red Bull took the scattergun approach to its second seat, which unsurprisingly had pretty shocking results, and rumours of Max Verstappen reaching the end of his tether have reached boiling point. And with all of that considered, what's the real cause of this exit? Well, the obvious answer is Max. The less obvious one is Christian Horner's control freak approach to team leadership. So before we get into the Max of it all, let's talk about that control stuff. In his role as the supreme overlord of Red Bull, Christian Horner wasn't just the team principal. Like Toto Wolff, he was also the CEO, but he had a third role as the head of Red Bull Powertrains, and he also liked to stick his nose in around the marketing and PR departments quite a lot. Reportedly, his refusal to hand over the reins of any of these positions and his desire to retain ultimate control over all aspects of Red Bull Racing's operations, as well as a lot of what was going on at Racing Bulls, I would like to add, was fundamentally at odds with how Red Bull GmbH wants the team to be run. Christian treated Red Bull like he owned the team. The media and many fans treated him like he owned the team, and Red Bull allegedly was not comfortable with him having this amount of power. Which, totally get it. That's control freak stuff. No big business can run effectively forever with one person holding that level of authority. Then when you look at what's happened in the last 18 months, you have to say it's just not been working. They've gone from winning the Constructors' Championship without even needing a second driver to scoring fewer points than Sauber in the last 4 races. Now granted, there was a pole position in there and a DNF that wasn't Max or the team's fault, but it's still a pretty shocking stat and an alarming fall from grace, especially when you consider a lot of that success Sauber's been having can at least in part be attributed to Red Bull's former sporting director. Horner, in conjunction with Helmut Marko, has also made some pretty questionable decisions on the driver front. Re-signing Sergio Perez for the money and the consistency, and then ultimately dropping him at the end of the 2024 season was the mistake that just kept on giving. Now, whether the re-signing or the dropping was the mistake is up for debate. There's plenty of people on both sides, but I think, on balance, the correct thing to do would have been to either keep Checo or not re-sign him in the first place in favour of Daniel Ricciardo, like we all thought was a done deal going into the summer break. Dropping both of them was the worst decision Horner could have made. Dropping Ricciardo in such an unceremonious fashion that feels kind of ironic now, considering what just happened to Christian, was not only an error on the driver management side of things, but also catastrophic for their PR. And they didn't do much better with Checo. It just happened after the season ended, so we didn't get that final bittersweet look back over his shoulder at the paddock, which tugged on so many heartstrings. Now they've gone on to destroy 2 more drivers' confidence and potential careers in Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson, and the furore around the Red Bull second seat has only become louder. And then there's Max and how his position may very much have been the straw that broke the camel's back. Now let's just take a pause for the obligatory personal plug. If you're enjoying this video and aren't already subscribed, please consider doing so. Click that like button. I also have a Patreon if you like supporting creators over there. It's the closest thing to sponsorship I'll ever take unless somebody offers me a bunch of money to promote something I really like, I don't know, Makita Power Tools. It's pay what you like. Every paid patron will always get the same benefits no matter what I end up adding and what tier they're on. Thanks so much to those of you who already support me over there. As always, much love and thanks for the help with the winter heating bill. And if you're keen to help out, the link is in the description as well as down here on the screen. Okay, plug over. Back to Max. Let me just check that some more crazy news hasn't broken in the few hours since I started writing this script. Okay, no, we're good. Hopefully. Maybe that'll change by the time I've finished editing and uploading. Now, there's 2 schools of thought here about what role the Verstappen camp played in this whole thing. 1, Red Bull was given an ultimatum that it's either Max or Christian. And 2, Max has already signed for Mercedes, and this catastrophic disaster prompted Red Bull to pull the trigger on tearing up Horner's contract. Both are well within the realms of possibility. However, it's this clip I'm about to play that pushes me towards thinking it's probably more likely the latter, although with some caveats. Now, provided that translation's correct, because frankly I do not understand Portuguese, before he backtracked, that's Nelson Piquet Jr. either misspeaking or saying something he probably shouldn't have. And considering Piquet Jr. is Max's de facto brother-in-law, and by all accounts they're pretty good friends beyond that familial relationship, you kind of can't ignore it. And to be honest, my knee-jerk reaction when I first read the Horner news was that Max has informed Red Bull that he will not be continuing with them beyond the final race of this season, dependent on his contractual exit clauses being met, or maybe Toto's willing to drop a whole lot of euros. And I know, the screaming masses are saying that it makes no sense for Max to leave until he knows where everyone's at with the new regulations. The thing is, he's gonna know where Red Bull is. He's gonna be pretty clued up on the car design. We're well into sim testing territory now. He's gonna know where the engine development's at. And if Toto Wolff was pursuing him to the level it's understood he has been, Max is also going to probably know a whole lot more about where Mercedes is at than your average driver or pundit. Would Toto really reveal some of Mercedes' secrets, show Max the data to get him on board? Of course he would. There is this wonderful thing called a non-disclosure agreement, and if you're pushing to sign a 4-time world champion, you're going to pull out every single thing in your arsenal to get the job done. And with the amount of poaching Mercedes has successfully done directly from Red Bull powertrains, it's likely that Max and his team, they like what they're seeing. Why would you stick around for 1 more year to see how everything shakes out if you already have a pretty damn good idea? And what you're seeing is not good. And if I were Laura Mekies right now, I'd be hella stressed. Star driver potentially about to jump ship, a massive amount of talent and experience gone from the wider team, and the potential for starting the first season after a huge regulation change without a driver with any real proven experience in car development. Because as much as I rate Yuki in a drivable car, that's something he himself will admit is not his strong point. If I were Laura Mekies right now, I'd be on the phone to both Daniel Ricciardo and Sergio Perez and groveling. What Mekies and Red Bull need is a huge PR boost and a few decades of combined experience. So, what's next for Christian Horner though? Let's be real here. It's unlikely he's going to be gone from the paddock for very long. Depending on how long his gardening leave period is, there's real potential actually that we might see him heading up another team by the time Melbourne rolls around. In the last 24 hours, Ferrari has said they're discussing Fred Vasseur's future. Now this could be a contract renewal or it could be the opposite. I don't agree with dropping Fred when his contract's up. I think it's dumb, but this is Ferrari we're talking about. And now in the last few months, there's already been a lot of chatter floating around that Maranello is interested in Horner, and whether or not this dismissal is a catalyst for them to sign him or something that turns them off him entirely, well, that remains to be seen. Then there's Alpine, which still kind of doesn't really have a proper team principal. Horner's pretty buddy-buddy with Flavio Briatore, so the chances of him winding up at Enstone probably aren't zero either. Regardless, I'm pretty sure by the time any contractual restrictions are lifted, Horner's going to be back in the paddock with his bum on a seat on the pit wall somewhere. Although having said that, there is still this whole lawsuit thing that's due to get resolved sometime in January, which could throw a fly in the ointment. So what's your thoughts on Horner's dumping? Do you think it's a huge mistake? Are you popping the champagne? Maybe you think it's got nothing to do with any of what I've just discussed and instead something else entirely. Let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching to the end. Thanks once again to my patrons, and I'll catch you next time. Hello, yeah, Daniel? Yeah, it's Laurent. Hey, look, I'm really sorry about Singapore. Yeah, listen, the reason I'm calling is I was wanting to offer you a deal that would mean you can drop that weird gambling integration you've got going on.